The sun beat down relentlessly on the endless expanse of sand, a scorching, unforgiving canvas stretching to a blurred horizon. Dust devils danced in the simmering heat, ephemeral spirits in a land that seemed to reject all life. This was the desert, vast and indifferent, a perfect shroud for secrets and a brutal stage for human conflict. Within its desolate beauty, a shadow loomed large, cast by a figure known only as the Scorpion. His very name was whispered with a terror that transcended tribal lines and national borders. He was an elusive militia leader, a ghost of the dunes, whose brutal tactics had carved a bloody swathe across the region. Villages burned, convoys vanished, and innocent lives were extinguished, all under the chilling sign of his venomous reign. Fear was his most potent weapon, and he wielded it with merciless precision, leaving behind a trail of despair and a power vacuum that threatened to engulf the entire territory. Against this backdrop of fear and desolation stood a small, elite unit from Mossad, Israel's formidable intelligence agency. At their helm was Agent Ilara, a woman whose sharp intellect was matched only by her unwavering resolve. Her eyes held a depth that spoke of countless battles fought, both external and internal, and a quiet determination that inspired fierce loyalty in her team. Their mission, seemingly impossible, was to track down and neutralize the Scorpion. The overwhelming challenge lay in his phantom-like existence. He seemed to vanish into the very sand, leaving no discernible trace, no digital footprint, no reliable intelligence. He was a whisper, a myth, a nightmare given form. Their only initial lead, a thread so thin it barely registered, was a single grainy amateur photograph of the Scorpion, taken years ago. It was a faded relic, a snapshot from a forgotten era, its edges softened by time and neglect. The task before them felt like trying to catch smoke with a sieve, to find a ghost in a vast, hostile desert with nothing more than a blurred, outdated image. The weight of expectation, the countless lives lost to the Scorpion's brutality, pressed down on Ilara. Justice demanded action, but the path forward was shrouded in impenetrable fog. Initial frustration gnawed at the team. Hours bled into days, poring over satellite imagery, sifting through decades of intelligence reports, all yielding nothing concrete. Despair began to creep in, a cold, insidious presence threatening to paralyze their efforts. How could they possibly find a man who left no mark? Then a flicker. A tiny, almost imperceptible detail in that ancient photograph caught the eye of David, a junior analyst known for his meticulous attention to minutiae. He pointed to a subtle anomaly in the background, a unique rock formation partially obscured by shadow and dust. The team exchanged skeptical glances. Could such an insignificant detail, a mere geological quirk, truly be their breakthrough? Ilara, however, possessed an intuition honed by years of impossible missions. When all other avenues failed, she trusted the smallest lead, the most improbable whisper. She leaned closer, her gaze tracing the contours David indicated. The rock formation, while indistinct, possessed a peculiar stratification, a distinct geological signature. This was their first tangible clue. David, leveraging his geological knowledge, began to cross-reference the formation's characteristics with geological surveys of the region. His research pointed to a specific, remote desert region known for its unique volcanic rock formations. It was a fragile lead, risky to pursue, but it was something. The team prepared for a reconnaissance mission into this unknown hostile territory. The silent promise hung in the air, unspoken but understood. They would not rest until the Scorpion was brought to justice. Their first drone deployment launched, a silent predator against the vast, empty expanse. Hours of scanning yielded nothing but endless sand and rock. Disappointment threatened to resurface, but Ilara's focus remained unwavering, pushing her team forward. Then, a faint, Almost imperceptible heat signature flickered on the drone feed. It was tiny, fleeting, but there. The suspense was immediate, palpable. Was it merely an animal seeking refuge from the desert's harsh embrace? Or was it something more? The answer remained suspended in the shimmering air. The faint heat signature, a mere ghost on the screen, demanded immediate and intense scrutiny from the team. David, with his sharp, analytical mind, meticulously adjusted the drone's thermal sensors, refining the image pixel by pixel. Slowly, painstakingly, the amorphous blob resolved into a more defined shape, indicating a small, temporary encampment. It was just a few smoldering embers, a hastily constructed windbreak, and the faint imprint of several bodies, now gone. Confirmation arrived. It was indeed a human presence, but one that had vanished with the desert wind, leaving minimal traces. The realization settled heavily upon Ilara. The Scorpion was a master of evasion, always on the move, never settling, a true phantom of the dunes. His operational modus operandi was clear: strike, vanish, leave no evidence. This ephemeral encounter, however, stirred a deeper, more personal current within Ilara. Her mind involuntarily drifted back to a mission years ago, a brutal ambush in a dusty, forgotten village. A humanitarian convoy, not unlike the one they were now trying to protect, had been decimated. Among the casualties was her younger sister, a dedicated aid worker whose idealism had been crushed by the harsh reality of global conflict. The memory, though distant, still carried the sting of fresh grief, a raw wound that never fully healed. For Ilara, this wasn't just another assignment. It was a deeply personal quest for retribution, a relentless pursuit of justice, not just for the victims of the Scorpion, but for her own lost loved one. Her motivation, therefore, transcended duty. It was interwoven with a profound, almost primal desire for vengeance. Returning to the abandoned camp, the ground team meticulously scoured the area, their movements precise and practiced. Amidst the scattered debris, a discarded ration pack, a broken tent pole, one item caught their attention: a unique, handmade charm, intricately carved from a piece of sun-bleached bone. It was small, unassuming, yet possessed an undeniable aura of significance. David, again, was the first to recognize its potential. His research, a deep dive into the ethnography of the region, quickly connected the charm's specific carving to a small, nearly forgotten nomadic tribe, known for their distinctive artistry and their deep ties to the ancient desert traditions. The discovery presented an immediate ethical dilemma. Involving innocent civilians, particularly a vulnerable nomadic tribe, in a dangerous mission against a ruthless militia leader was fraught with peril. Ilara weighed the risks, the potential for collateral damage, against the desperate need for intelligence. Her decision was swift and firm: protect the innocents at all costs, but extract information if possible. They would approach with caution, with respect, and with a clear understanding of the dangers they presented. Under the cloak of a starlit desert night, the team made contact with the nomadic tribe elders. Initial distrust, a natural response born of generations of hardship and external interference, was palpable in the elders' guarded eyes. Fear, a constant companion in this harsh landscape, shadowed their faces. Ilara, however, possessed a rare gift for delicate negotiation, her voice soft, yet firm, her demeanor radiating sincerity. She spoke of justice, of protecting the innocent, of the shared desire for peace in a land too long tormented by violence. Slowly, painstakingly, she began to build a fragile bridge of rapport, a nascent trust forming in the silent expanse between them. One tribal elder, his face a roadmap of weathered lines, recognized the charm. His eyes, clouded with sorrow, revealed its tragic story. It had belonged to a young woman, his granddaughter, taken by the Scorpion's men months ago. The elder, his voice a gravelly whisper, shared a cryptic piece of information, a riddle passed down through generations. He fears the place where the sun dies twice. The team exchanged puzzled glances. The phrase hung in the air, enigmatic and profound. David, ever the scholar, immediately delved into his historical and geographical knowledge. He cross-referenced ancient texts, local folklore, and satellite topography. His eyes lit up as he found the correlation. The place where the sun dies twice referred to a specific legendary canyon known for an optical illusion where, due to its unique geological formations, the setting sun appeared to dip below the horizon, only to reappear moments later, dying a second time before true darkness fell. The new lead narrowed down the search area significantly, transforming an impossible quest into a tangible, albeit still perilous, objective. The canyon awaited, a labyrinth of rock and shadow, and within its depths, perhaps, the scorpion. The growing sense of urgency and danger now pressed down upon them, a palpable weight in the desert air. The team moved with a renewed sense of purpose, their footsteps echoing softly against the ancient rock of the canyon. This was no ordinary desert expanse. It was a geological marvel, a winding labyrinth of towering sandstone walls carved by millennia of wind and water. Every turn presented a new vista, a new challenge. The air, surprisingly cool within its shadowed depths, carried the scent of dry earth and distant, unseen life. The outline's promise of hidden dangers was not an exaggeration. Jagged edges, sudden drops, and narrow passes made navigation treacherous, demanding their full concentration. Ilara, leading the way, scanned every crevice, every overhang, her senses on high alert. As the sun began its descent, the canyon prepared to reveal its secret. They found a vantage point, a slightly elevated ledge overlooking a wider basin. There, they witnessed the phenomenon the elder had described, the double sunset. The fiery orb dipped below the western rim, bathing the canyon in a brief, ethereal glow. Then, as if drawn by an invisible hand, it reappeared, a sliver of brilliant orange against the darkening sky, before finally succumbing to the true twilight. The visual spectacle was breathtaking, a testament to the desert's mystique, but it also served as a stark reminder of the unique, almost magical nature of this place, a perfect hiding spot for a phantom like the scorpion. As darkness fully embraced the canyon, the team began their meticulous search. Their initial observations confirmed the canyon's long history of human presence. They discovered hidden caves, some barely more than shallow alcoves, others, vast and echoing, adorned with faded pictographs hinting at ancient rituals. Further in, they found the crumbling remains of what appeared to be ancient ruins, structures long reclaimed by the elements, yet still bearing the unmistakable mark of human hands. It was a place where time seemed to fold in on itself, past and present, coexisting in the silent stone. Amidst these ancient echoes, they soon found disturbing evidence of recent activity. Faint footprints, partially obscured by wind-blown sand, led deeper into the canyon. Discarded rations, modern, plastic-wrapped packages, lay half-buried near a cluster of boulders. Most tellingly, a burnt-out campfire, its ashes still warm to the touch, indicated a recent departure. A shiver ran through the team. They were undeniably getting closer. The scorpion had been here, perhaps very recently. The tension in the air thickened, a palpable current of anticipation and dread. As Ilara moved through a particularly narrow passage, her boots scuffed against something barely visible in the dim light. Her quick reflexes, honed by years of field experience, allowed her to halt mid-stride. A tripwire, almost invisible against the rocky ground, stretched taut across their path, connected to a crude but effective alarm system. A stack of loose rocks designed to tumble with a loud clatter. A close call. The Scorpion was not merely hiding, he was actively defending his sanctuary. The growing paranoia was well-founded. He was aware of his surroundings, always prepared, always one step ahead. The team decided to set up a discreet observation post overlooking a wider, more open section of the canyon floor. Hours of waiting stretched into an eternity, punctuated only by the distant howl of a desert wind and the occasional scuttling of unseen creatures. The silence was oppressive, the tension palpable, each team member acutely aware of the stakes. Then, just as the moon began its slow ascent, figures emerged from the shadows. A small group of the Scorpion's men, perhaps 5 or 6, moved cautiously, their movements fluid and practiced. They were heavily armed, their weapons glinting faintly in the moonlight, and their disciplined formation spoke of rigorous training. The team, hidden from view, observed their movements through night vision scopes, trying to discern patterns, looking for any weakness, any tell. One of the men, taller than the others, carried a distinctive satchel slung across his back. It wasn't a military-issue pack. Rather, it appeared to be made of dark, heavy canvas, embellished with unfamiliar symbols. Was it a clue? A personal belonging? Or something more significant? Ilara's mind raced, cataloging every detail. She gave a silent hand signal, ordering a covert follow. Maintaining a safe distance, moving like shadows themselves, the team tracked the militia members. The men led them deeper into the canyon's heart, towards a section where the walls seemed to converge, forming a natural cul-de-sac. There, camouflaged perfectly against the rock face, almost invisible to the untrained eye, was an entrance. It was a masterpiece of concealment, blending seamlessly with the surrounding stone. The realization hit them with the force of a physical blow. This was not just a temporary camp. This was a well-established, secure hideout. The canyon truly held the Scorpion's secret. The team observed the hidden entrance, a formidable barrier between them and their elusive target. Its seamless integration into the canyon wall spoke volumes of the resources and meticulous planning invested in its construction. A direct assault, Ilara knew with chilling certainty, would be suicidal, leading only to heavy casualties and mission failure. Their objective was not merely to engage, but to penetrate, to understand, and ultimately, to neutralize the threat. Ilara, her mind already racing through countless scenarios, began to devise a plan for covert infiltration. The sheer audacity of the task was daunting, but retreat was not an option. David, with his unparalleled technical skills, would be crucial. His expertise in bypassing surveillance systems, anticipated to be sophisticated given the hideout's elaborate nature, represented their best chance of gaining unseen entry. Every member of the team understood the immense risks involved, but their resolve was unwavering. Under the deepening cloak of darkness, a small infiltration team, led by Ilara and including David, moved with practiced stealth towards the concealed entrance. Each shadow became a temporary ally, every gust of wind a potential cover for their soft footsteps. The journey through what proved to be a labyrinth of narrow tunnels was fraught with peril. Booby traps, cunningly placed pressure plates and laser grids, relics of older, simpler defenses alongside more modern iterations, tested their every move. David, his fingers dancing over a portable console, skillfully disarmed each obstacle, his focus absolute, his breathing barely audible. Finally, after what felt like an eternity navigating the subterranean maze, they discovered a central command center. It was a hive of activity, brightly lit and bustling with the muted hum of electronics and the low murmur of voices. Monitors flickered with satellite feeds and tactical maps. And there, on one of the largest screens, was the Scorpion himself. His image, projected larger than life, showed him giving orders to his subordinates, his face a mask of cold intensity. He was not just a desert phantom. He was a strategic mastermind, commanding a well-oiled machine of terror. The shocking revelation came as Ilara and her team observed the flickering screens and listened to intercepted communications. The Scorpion was planning a major attack, far more devastating than anything they had previously imagined. The target was not a military installation or a government outpost. It was a civilian humanitarian aid convoy, laden with desperately needed supplies for displaced populations. The sheer depravity of targeting those who brought succor to the vulnerable ignited a cold fury within Ilara. Their time was critically limited. The convoy's route and departure times were being finalized. A stark dilemma presented itself. Should they focus on capturing the Scorpion, a goal driven by years of pursuit and personal vengeance? Or should they prioritize preventing the imminent attack, saving innocent lives? Ilara's internal conflict was brief, but intense. The faces of the victims, both past and potential, flashed through her mind. Personal vengeance, she knew, could never outweigh the protection of innocent lives. The choice was clear. She chose to prioritize the convoy. They needed to obtain the GPS coordinates of the convoy's route from the Scorpion's network to warn them. David immediately sprang into action, his fingers flying across his keyboard, attempting to hack into the Scorpion's heavily encrypted network. The seconds stretched into an excruciating eternity. A sudden, sharp noise echoed from a nearby corridor. Footsteps. A guard, his weapon slung casually, rounded the corner, oblivious to their presence. David froze, his breath held, just as the guard's gaze swept past their hiding spot. It was a terrifyingly close call, a hair's breadth from discovery. Then a triumphant, almost imperceptible nod from David. Success. He had obtained the crucial GPS coordinates, along with other vital intelligence regarding the Scorpion's operational plans. The data was encrypted, but David had managed to secure the raw information. Their mission in this phase was accomplished. Now, they faced the equally perilous task of extracting themselves from the very heart of the Scorpion's lair and warning the convoy before it was too late. The infiltration team, having secured the vital intelligence, executed a hasty but silent retreat through the labyrinthine tunnels. Each shadow seemed to lengthen, each whisper of air a potential threat. They moved with practiced efficiency, their footsteps barely disturbing the dust of ages, their hearts pounding in their chests with a mixture of relief and adrenaline. Once clear of the immediate perimeter of the hidden base, they transmitted the critical GPS coordinates to Ilara's main unit, waiting patiently outside the canyon. The digital signal, a lifeline across the barren expanse, carried the fate of hundreds. Ilara, receiving the encrypted data, acted with immediate and decisive precision. She wasted no time contacting the humanitarian aid convoy, her voice urgent but controlled, issuing a severe warning about the imminent ambush. The convoy's command, initially skeptical of such an extraordinary claim, listened intently as Ilara provided specific details. The exact location of the planned ambush, the number of militia expected, even the type of weaponry they would face. The precision of her intelligence was undeniable, forcing them to acknowledge the grave danger. Without hesitation, the convoy diverted its route, a sudden, unexpected turn that sent a ripple of confusion through the waiting militia. They had narrowly avoided the Scorpion's meticulously planned attack, a disaster averted by mere minutes, and the bravery of a small team. Miles away, in the strategic ambush site, the Scorpion's men waited in frustrated silence. Their target, the convoy, never appeared. The empty desert stretched before them, mocking their preparations. The Scorpion, observing from a concealed vantage point, felt a cold wave of fury wash over him. His plans, usually executed with ruthless efficiency, had been compromised. He realized with a chilling certainty that his sanctuary had been breached, his network infiltrated. The rage that simmered within him was palpable, a dangerous fire that threatened to consume anyone in its path. He suspected an inside leak, a betrayal, or an infiltration of his supposedly impenetrable base. His orders were swift and brutal. Sweep the entire area, find the intruders, and leave no trace. The Mossad team, now deep within the treacherous canyon, found themselves in a desperate race against time. The canyon walls, once their sanctuary, now felt like a tightening noose. They had to escape before the Scorpion's enraged forces discovered their presence. As they navigated a narrow passage, the silence was shattered by the crack of gunfire. A fierce firefight erupted as they unexpectedly encountered one of the Scorpion's patrols, alerted by his general order to sweep. Bullets ricocheted off rock, screams echoed through the canyon, and the air filled with the acrid smell of gunpowder. Amidst the chaos, a sharp cry of pain. One of Ilara's team members, a young operative named Amir, fell, clutching his leg, blood rapidly soaking his desert fatigues. The sight pierced Ilara's heart, a stark reminder of the brutal cost of their mission. The emotional toll was immense. She had to balance the imperative of her mission with the paramount responsibility of her team's safety. Her mind raced, calculating risks and probabilities, every decision weighted with life and death. Despite the heavy fire, they managed to extract the severely wounded Amir, dragging him to relative cover behind a cluster of boulders. But their position was irrevocably compromised. The Scorpion's forces, now fully aware of their location, were closing in from multiple directions. The canyon, once a path to their objective, had become a deadly trap. The grim realization settled upon them, heavy and suffocating. They were trapped in the canyon, surrounded, with no apparent way out. The desert, unforgiving and vast, now seemed to conspire with their enemy. The team, pinned down by relentless enemy fire, found their ammunition dwindling with terrifying speed. Every shot fired was a gamble, every movement a risk. Ilara, her face grim and determined, made a desperate call for backup. She knew, with a sinking feeling, that even if the cavalry mobilized immediately, it would take hours, perhaps an entire day, for them to reach this remote, hostile location. Their survival depended on their own grit and ingenuity in the interim. Suddenly, a new figure emerged from the swirling dust and smoke of the skirmish. The Serpent, the Scorpion's ruthless second-in-command, a man whose reputation for brutality almost matched his leader's. He moved with a predatory grace, his men following close behind, their weapons blazing. As his eyes met Ilara's across the chaotic battlefield, a jolt of recognition, cold and unwelcome, shot through her. The Serpent. The name itself was a cruel irony. He was not just an enemy. He was a phantom from her past. A man she had once known, even trusted, years ago during a joint intelligence operation. A wave of nausea washed over Ilara, quickly replaced by a searing, white-hot rage. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The Serpent hadn't merely been an asset. He had been a mole, an infiltrator, burrowing deep into their intelligence network. He had systematically fed them false leads, cleverly misdirected their efforts, and masterfully obscured the Scorpion's true movements. This explained the Scorpion's uncanny elusiveness, his ability to vanish without a trace, to anticipate every move against him. The betrayal was profound, a festering wound reopened with brutal force. Her personal vendetta, once a simmering undercurrent, now surged to the forefront, intertwining inextricably with the mission. This was no longer just about justice for the region, it was about confronting a deeply personal treachery. With a primal scream, Ilara launched herself towards the Serpent, her movements a blur of controlled fury. The firefight around them faded into a dull roar as their personal battle began. It was a brutal dance of fists, elbows and knees, each strike fueled by years of suppressed anger and a profound sense of violation. The Serpent, though formidable, was unprepared for the sheer ferocity of Ilara's assault. Her rage lent her an almost superhuman strength, her training honed to a razor's edge by the betrayal. She parried his blows, sidestepped his attacks, and countered with a precision born of desperate vengeance. The serpent stumbled, surprised by her intensity, by the raw emotion radiating from her. Ilara saw her opening, a fleeting moment of vulnerability, and seized it. She delivered a devastating blow, sending him sprawling against the rough canyon wall. Before he could recover, Ilara was on him, her combat knife pressed firmly against his throat. His eyes, wide with a mixture of fear and grudging respect, met hers. "Why?" she hissed, her voice a low growl, barely audible above the distant gunshots. The serpent, gasping for breath, knew his time was up. In his dying breath, a final, desperate act of self-preservation, or perhaps a twisted form of atonement, he revealed a crucial piece of information. The Scorpion's emergency escape route. Hidden passage, behind the Twin Peaks. Only for him, he croaked, his voice fading. He described a secret, almost mythical tunnel, a desperate last resort carved into the very heart of the canyon, known only to a select few. The revelation was a game-changer. Ilara, despite the visceral hatred she felt, forced herself to focus, to process the information. This was their chance. This was how they would trap the Scorpion. With new purpose, she rallied her battered team. They used the serpent's dying words, his unwitting betrayal of his leader, to anticipate the Scorpion's movements. They moved swiftly, silently, through the labyrinthine passages of the canyon, setting a meticulous trap at the hidden passage. The Scorpion, desperate to escape the net that was tightening around him, would inevitably seek this secret path. He would walk right into their ambush, a confrontation years in the making, now finally looming on the horizon. The final showdown awaited, a culmination of all the sacrifices, all the suffering, all the relentless pursuit. The Scorpion, his eyes burning with a furious desperation, emerged from the hidden passage directly into the meticulously set trap. He found himself face to face with Ilara, her stance unwavering, her eyes reflecting a cold, unyielding resolve. The air crackled with an almost palpable tension, a silent prelude to the storm about to break. "You thought you could hide forever, Scorpion." Ilara's voice cut through the silence, sharp and clear. "Your reign of terror ends here." The Scorpion, a man whose name had long been synonymous with fear and brutality, scoffed, a chilling, humorless sound. "Justice? You speak of justice, woman? I bring order to chaos, strength to the weak. You bring only Western ideals and weakness." He gestured wildly at his remaining men, who had also stumbled into the ambush, now surrounded by Ilara's team. These people understand true power, the power of conviction. His twisted justification for violence, a familiar rhetoric of victimhood and righteous anger, poured forth. He painted himself as a liberator, his heinous acts merely necessary steps towards a greater, purer future. Ilara listened, her expression unreadable, but her mind was clear. She saw through his self-serving narrative, recognizing the hollow core of a man who thrived on suffering. "You bring only death and despair," she countered, her voice now laced with quiet authority. "And we bring an end to it." Suddenly the canyon erupted in a maelstrom of gunfire. The Scorpion's remaining militia, fierce and fanatical, launched a desperate suicidal assault against the Mossad team. The battle was chaotic, a brutal exchange of fire echoing off the canyon walls. Bullets whizzed past, ricocheting with deadly speed. Heavy casualties began to mount on both sides, the air filling with the acrid smell of gunpowder and the cries of the wounded. Ilara moved with practiced efficiency, directing her team, her shots precise and deadly. David, hunkered down behind a rocky outcrop, worked feverishly on his console. He had anticipated this. Using his hacking skills, he targeted the Scorpion's automated defenses, the strategically placed turrets and motion sensors that guarded the inner sanctum. With a series of rapid keystrokes, he systematically disabled them, turning the Scorpion's own technology against him, creating crucial openings for the Mossad team. Amidst the pandemonium, Ilara's gaze remained fixed on the Scorpion. He was attempting to rally his bewildered forces, his face contorted in a mask of fury. This was it, her final confrontation, a battle that had been years in the making, a culmination of all the suffering he had inflicted. She broke away from the main firefight, pushing through the chaos, her path directly towards him. Their eyes locked across the embattled clearing. The Scorpion, seeing her approach, snarled, drawing a hidden blade. He met her charge with a ferocity born of cornered desperation. It was a brutal, personal fight, a visceral clash reflecting not just their opposing ideologies, but the deep, personal pain Ilara had carried for so long. Every parry, every strike, every desperate lunge was imbued with the weight of countless innocent lives, of the loved ones lost, of the pervasive fear he had sown. The Scorpion, though formidable, began to falter. Ilara, fueled by a relentless sense of purpose and honed by years of rigorous training, slowly but surely gained the upper hand. Her movements were fluid, precise, a deadly dance of vengeance and justice. With a final, expertly placed strike, she disarmed him, sending his blade clattering uselessly against the rocks. The Scorpion stumbled back, wounded, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He was at her mercy. The moment of truth. The temptation for personal vengeance, for swift, brutal retribution, was immense, a dark whisper in her mind. His face, contorted in defeat, seemed to invite it. But as she looked at him, she saw not just the monster, but the faces of the innocent victims, the true purpose of her mission. She remembered the humanitarian convoy, the nomadic tribe, the countless anonymous lives she had sworn to protect. Justice, not revenge. That was the core of her being, the bedrock of her resolve. With a deep, steadying breath, Ilara made her choice. She secured the Scorpion, binding him tightly, her movements deliberate and unwavering. Just as the last of the Scorpion's men were subdued, the distant rumble of approaching vehicles grew louder. Backup had arrived. Armored jeeps swept into the canyon, soldiers fanning out to secure the area, providing medical attention to the wounded. The relief and exhaustion on the faces of Ilara's team were palpable, a silent testament to the ordeal they had endured. The capture of the Scorpion, the elusive ghost of the desert, sent shockwaves not only through the immediate region, but across international intelligence networks. A major victory had been won, a grave threat neutralized. The aftermath settled over the desert, a quiet calm replacing the cacophony of battle. The Scorpion, now a captured figure stripped of his aura of invincibility, was swiftly taken into custody, his fate sealed by the international charges awaiting him. His reign of terror had ended, replaced by the slow, methodical grind of justice. Meanwhile, the humanitarian aid convoy, having successfully diverted its route, continued its journey without incident, delivering vital supplies to those in desperate need. Their mission, once imperiled, now stood as a testament to the Mossad team's swift and decisive intervention. Back in the heart of the desert, the nomadic tribe, finally free from the shadow of the Scorpion's tyranny, emerged from their secluded havens. Their gratitude towards Ilara and her team was profound, expressed through ancient customs and heartfelt gestures. Ilara sought out the tribal elder, the wise woman who had shared the cryptic prophecy. The elder, her eyes reflecting the wisdom of generations, grasped Ilara's hand. "You have fulfilled the prophecy, child," she murmured, her voice raspy with emotion. "The sun rises again, casting out the longest night. You have brought a new dawn to our desert." Her words resonated deeply within Ilara, a confirmation that their arduous mission had transcended mere duty, touching the very soul of the land and its people. David, the quiet analyst whose keen eye and technical prowess had proven indispensable, received a well-deserved commendation for his crucial role. His meticulous research into the rock formation, his daring hack into the Scorpion's network, and his quick thinking during the firefight had all been pivotal in turning the tide. He accepted the accolades with a humble nod, already absorbed in the next complex data stream. The Mossad team eventually returned from the desert, hailed as heroes by their agency and the international community. Yet, beneath the surface of their triumph, scars remained. The faces of the fallen, the desperate cries of the wounded, the harrowing close calls. These experiences were etched into their memories, a stark reminder of the immense cost of their victory. Ilara, in particular, carried a profound weight. She reflected on the lives lost, the sacrifices made, the brutal choices that had defined their mission. But amidst the introspection, she found a profound sense of peace. She had not only apprehended a dangerous extremist, but had also prevented untold suffering, securing a fragile peace for those who had lived under the shadow of fear for too long. The desert, once a vast, terrifying expanse ruled by a phantom, now held a glimmer of hope. The immediate threat had been neutralized, a monumental achievement. Yet Ilara understood that the challenges were far from over. The desert remained a wild, untamed land, a crucible where new threats could always emerge. The fight for peace was an ongoing, relentless endeavor, a continuous vigil against the forces of chaos. The legacy of the amateur photograph and the GPS coordinates would endure within the annals of Mossad. It served as a powerful testament to how the smallest, most seemingly insignificant clues, when pursued with unwavering determination and brilliant deduction, could lead to the biggest, most impactful victories. It underscored the enduring power of human ingenuity, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of justice against overwhelming odds. Ilara stood alone on a desolate ridge, the vast, silent desert stretching out before her under a sky painted with the hues of dusk. She was a solitary figure, her silhouette stark against the fading light, looking towards the horizon. The wind whispered ancient secrets through the canyons, carrying promises of both peace and peril. Her work was far from over. She was ready for the next challenge, for whatever the shifting sands of the world might bring. The fight for a better world was a journey, not a destination, and Ilara, a sentinel of justice, was prepared to walk its path, come what may.